Welcome to Return on Insights, the show where candid conversations with bold founders and leaders spark actionable insights for your business. I'm David Lindover.
And I'm Erin Abatangelo. Each week, we pull back the curtain with leaders who are scaling teams and shaping the future, sharing the insights that create impact far beyond the bottom line.
Discover how high-performing companies build enduring cultures, inspire teams to think bigger, and turn vision into action. If you see storytelling as your strategic advantage, you're in the right place. Welcome to Return on Insights podcast. I'm David Lindover, your host. Today's episode features Cyrus Kazi. He's the CEO and co-founder of Quantibly, a groundbreaking platform shaping the future of impact data for social change. In a world where demonstrating social impact through reliable data is critical, Quantibly tackles key gaps in how nonprofits, philanthropies, and corporations report and understand their influence. He brings over 20 years of experience in social impact and tech, guiding Quantibly's mission to democratize impact data and empower decision-making across the global impact ecosystem. This conversation is essential for anyone interested in how data innovation fuels more effective social change. Welcome, Cyrus.
Thank you, David. And that is probably the nicest introduction to Quantibly I've heard in a long time.
Great. Thanks for that, Cyrus. So my first question, really to set it up for our viewers, what gaps in the impact measurement space did you identify that Quantibly aims to fill? And give us a full explanation of that, please.
Sure. As you mentioned, I've been working in the intersection of social impact and technology for about 26 years now. And when I first started working in this sector, it felt like watching a really poorly directed movie on repeat. So it's like 8 p.m. Tomorrow we have a funder or an investor conversation, and the CEO is scrambling to get relevant data and from multiple different systems, and there is no way that data is probably accurate, and it's always a mess, and everyone around us was kind of pretending, oh, it's the normal, because not-for-profit sector is supposed to be all scrappy and bootstrapping all the time. That's kind of when I realized that the sector has three problems. The first one was that the not-for-profit sector was not using the right business tools. I mean, for donor management and basic CRMs, they are built to track transactions, not outcomes. It is technically a tool. You can track data, but it is not the right tool for the job. The second part was that most organizations were kind of speaking different languages. The philanthropies and the organizations, they're all speaking kind of different languages around what is impact and how do we measure it. One not-for-profit would be kind of tracking a number of lives improved, whatever that means. Another one would track kind of beneficiaries served. And no two organizations are talking the same language. So if you wanted to compare effectiveness of an intervention, you will just end up needing therapy at that point, because nothing would make sense. And I think the third problem, which I think is a major problem, was the accessibility gap. There are a few measurement tools that are very expensive, very complex, that only the big organizations could afford. And by big, I mean really billion-dollar organizations could afford. It was like seeing a two-tier system where big organizations with lots of resources could afford the best tools and infrastructure, while grassroots organizations were essentially kind of riding a bike, while the others were riding a Ferrari. And this is where Lexington Advisory Group, our consulting arm, our advisory arm, kind of started building Quantibly. We realized early on that it is beyond just building a software and capacity building advice. We needed to ensure that every organization, regardless of their size or geography, wherever they are, they're all kind of using same standards, same methodologies, same tools. So these are the kind of impact measurement gaps that we saw, and that's what Lexington Advisory Group started. That's when Lexington Advisory started building Quantibly about 10 years ago.
So how does Quantibly differentiate itself from other CRMs or data platforms that are used by nonprofits?
So as I mentioned, traditional CRMs and ERPs, they're great tools, but they work like how should I say this? They're just transactional tools, right? They record a transaction, whether you're meeting with a client, a beneficiary, or you're providing therapy to a particular patient. And typically, organizations think of kind of impact measurement like you're ordering something on Amazon. Like, I just donate some money and you hire a bunch of people and they provide services and everybody's happy. In reality, impact is messy. Social impact is contextual, it's relational, it's not transactional. Most of the time, the impact that you see happens over such a long period of time. And by the time you have figured it out, everything has changed. So one of the many ways Quantibly differs from the traditional platforms is that Quantibly was the first impact intelligence platform to operationalize, and I can explain what that means. Operationalize what is called the theory of change. What are you changing? How are you changing it? What is the context? What is working? What is not? So instead of saying, like a typical CRM would say, congratulations, you've served 1,000 people this month. But in our platform, we're saying, oh, your program A has a 40% better results because it's partnered with local organizations compared to program B that didn't. So contextual data, right? So that's actionable intelligence for organizations. So also what sets us apart in many ways is that we encourage organizations to share the data back to the community. Typically, CRMs and ERPs, these are data black holes. Data goes in, nobody kind of sees what's happening in the background. The community that is sharing the data, they never get some data back. In our case, the impact measurement cannot happen without the data becoming collaborative and participatory, right? So besides these areas, there are other things that we do for in regards to like differentiate ourselves from CRMs and ERPs. It's like we want to make sure that there are certain industry standards in terms of data that becomes kind of available to everyone. So I mentioned accessibility a few seconds ago. There's a huge technology accessibility is concerned. CRMs and ERPs are built around the idea that, every per user per month, squeeze the last dollars out of everyone. Our platform is not built around that philosophy at all. It's a completely different philosophical approach, in my opinion. That has like different methodologies, different outcomes.
Cyrus, could you just repeat that last segment? Your video froze here. So for those that will see it, I want them to get your full explanation.
Now, I was saying that the biggest difference between Quantibly and the other CRMs is that the way CRMs approach this data and the market is like, per user, per month, get as much money out of them as possible, prolong it as much as you can, and record the transaction, as opposed to ours is built on accessibility. We want to make sure that everybody has access to the data, they can afford it, they can scale it. So we have a completely two different philosophical approach here than the CRM. The CRMs, the way they look at data or their clients is kind of completely opposed to how we look at the social impact sector.
Got it. So, and you've touched on this. So what does democratizing impact data mean then in practical terms?
That's a great question. Okay, so let me give an example. There's a great community organization right now that we are working with in rural Bangladesh, and they're working with farmers and collecting agricultural data. And there's also a major international organization doing similar work, but the difference is the international organization has millions of dollars, and they're based out of South America. In an ideal world, because they're doing similar work, they'll be part of an impact ecosystem, a repository where they can share best practices, share ideas, what is working, what is not working, even though they're thousands of miles apart. So this is not a kind of like idealistic thinking. This is actually a necessity because we're part of a global community. So, impact data is not isolated, right? So when I say democratizing impact data, it essentially means removing the barriers to impact data, right? So the first part is making data accessible to people and organizations. So the first part is the financial accessibility part. So we structured a lot of other platforms. They price out, small organizations. They only cater to the top who can afford it. From the get-go, we wanted to make sure that our platform can be afforded, by any size organizations. We have organizations that are five people, and there are organizations who use our platform. They have 120,000 employees. So it all completely depends. And a platform is flexible enough so that it's kind of include everybody there. And through our partnership network with a bunch of other organizations, we can adjust to different countries and pricing structure and what have you. The second is the technical accessibility. This is also the democratization part comes in. Our platform is not designed for venture capitalists and PEs and data scientists. When we took on our designing our platform, one of the first questions we asked is that can a person with a fifth or sixth grade education use our platform? So we wanted to make sure our platform is easy, it's accessible, even by people with disabilities, and that technical accessibility is available to everyone, not just people who can pay for it, right? I mean, don't take me wrong, other organizations have some of those tools too, but not as a kind of like a standard of operations, if you will. And there is also the cultural accessibility part, because when you look at the CRMs and ERPs, most of the time, they don't necessarily kind of adjust to methodologies or languages of different cultures. So what I mean by that, let's say mental health outcomes is different for a community in, let's say, immigrant and refugee communities compared to a lot more integrated community per se, or a different country, because mental health, the definition thereof, and mental health well-being is greatly to differ. So, and the last part I want to say when it comes to kind of democratization is that the data and privacy aspect. At Quantibly, at Lexington Advisory, our consulting arm, we are kind of fierce privacy advocates. So, and we never have access to sensitive client data. We want to make sure that we are we are honoring the data for every organization, not just the big ones who can pay for X, Y, and Z. As such, compliance, GDPR, HIPAA, FARPA, ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and all of this is kind of standard to make sure that every organization can take advantage of this data privacy, standards, and so it's equitable in many ways. So that's what I mean by democratizing impact data. Instead of kind of solely looking at organizations with the biggest checkbooks, because they get to traditionally they get to decide what impact looks like. We're kind of flipping the narrative. Is the upside down pyramid, if you will, and it's been our experience that real impact is actually generated at the bottom tier. It's not at the top.
Understood. That was a good ending. How are shifting expectations around CSR, corporate social responsibility, reshaping how companies and nonprofits collaborate?
Ooh, that's a great question, and my answer might piss off many corporations and foundations. So, historically, CSR has been kind of like what I call checkbook CSR, right? It's a PR campaign. You even a few years ago, you find a cause, you write a nice little check, take a nice photo, put it on annual report, and call it a day. There is no sustainability here, and it's like an impact theater, right? It still happens. Don't take me wrong, but that has dramatically shifted after I want to say after the pandemic. Employees, beneficiaries, clients, funders, investors are basically saying, show me the receipt. We gave you money. Show us proof of actual outcome, not just the feel good, pretty little marketing materials. So, because of the dynamic shift, it's creating some interesting conversation in terms of what does CSR, future of the CSR means. And then we're seeing that at Lexington Advisory, because we work with a bunch of CSRs. We're also seeing it at Quantibly level, because organizations that are using Quantibly are talking about how do we make this data more visible, more accurate, more, et cetera, et cetera. So companies are kind of stopping to become ATMs for not-for-profits and trying to become more thoughtful investor. And the emergence of phrases like, venture philanthropy is a great example, right? There's organizations, there's funders and corporations that are sharing technology, network, resources, not just money, which is great. But on the flip side, it is kind of raising the stakes for not-for-profits too. Because think about it, if you can no longer tell a story, a compelling story with data, then you're not going to get investment. You're not going to get contributions or investment, and whatever you call it. So not-for-profits and NGOs and social enterprises that can demonstrate that they're achieving measurable, verifiable impact are attracting an absurd amount of money. I mean, the impact investment market is a $10 trillion market. That's an absurd amount of money. So impact investment is there. The money is there. It's the smart money. And the organizations that are understanding that we need to show our impact, they're attracting that kind of dollar, right? So that's what we're seeing. And we're also seeing that the traditional not-for-profits that have legacy systems are kind of relying on spreadsheets and CRMs. I hate to say it, that they're bleeding resources and relevance at this point, right? Like, what are you doing? Honestly, you're just tracking, interactions with your clients, your beneficiaries, and you're reporting that as an impact. It's wasteful almost. You know what I mean? So that's what we see, the shifting expectations and shifting culture, both not just from the CSR side, from the corporate side, but also from the organization side. And while we're on the topic of CSR, I also want to kind of include corporate philanthropy as well. And that is also shifting. Corporate philanthropy was a nice little tax break for large corporation. Now they're also asking for data, and now they're also wanting to collaborate, and they want proof, they want the receipt, and that is a very exciting shift that is happening.
Also sounds like a great place for Quantibly to be benefiting. So, but maybe for a future conversation we can talk about that. Can you share how Quantibly's partnerships with firms serving multiple charities accelerates impact?
So it kind of goes back to our business development strategy. Historically, we have done the door-to-door sales strategy, and honestly, it's ineffective and frustrating. Instead, this year we have taken on a whole partnership structure. What do I mean by that? So through Lexington and at Quantibly, there's a partnership that, we call it the impact ecosystem effect, and it kind of works like this. Is a basic understanding that no single organization can achieve a specific social impact alone, period. That is just not going to happen. So when we are partnering with, let's say, consulting firms or accounting firms or fundraising consultants and technology companies even, right? They're providing services to the sector, whether they're partnering with Lexington or Quantibly, we are all kind of we're creating a data repository, a data network, and sharing best practices. And suddenly there is a network effect where everyone is realizing their piece to this whole ecosystem. Like, okay, we are solving this problem, and this adds up to the bigger macro issue, so to speak. So, like, one good example is that we just recently partnered with through Lexington. We partnered with an organization, a membership organization that has about 200 plus environmental conservation projects going on all over the world. And through our platforms, these organizations are all kind of sharing resources, sharing ideas, what's happening in Brazil, what's happening in Southern India, what's happening in Indonesia, completely different. So it's a global kind of connection data points that is happening, and that is helping them make conservation efforts seamless and cost effective. At the same time, when we are partnering with consulting firms and others, it's also reducing the cost of technology, adaptation. So, I'll give you an example. One of the foundations that we are working with in the Midwest, in the U.S., we're asking them. They're making Quantibly part of the entire grantee ecosystem. So every organization is using the same solution, same program, same standard, same impact measurement, different programs. One is youth, one is poverty, but they're all using same methodology, same technology. So suddenly you're looking at the market as a whole, the ecosystem as a whole. And that, in our viewpoint, is kind of like a crease in accountability loop, right? That benefits everyone. So immediately, if one organization is not kind of meeting those benchmarks, it's like a shared impact benchmark that you have set up through your community. And everyone is kind of feeding into each other, sharing best practices, sharing resources, coordinating. And that's a fascinating thing to watch. So the partnership that we build is built around that. It's not just referrals or, hey, bring your portfolio here. It's us actively working with those partners, setting up the impact ecosystem that we built through Lexington, and using Quantibly as the digital data infrastructure, if you will, to support that work. That's how the whole partnership, ecosystem is working right now.
Makes perfect sense. It really does. Looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of social impact measurement and technology, which is where you were headed in the last question?
So there are multiple things that are happening in the sector, and that's exciting. One is I want to say that the way we are seeing this in Europe and Africa, and the so-called global South, as they call it, that they're looking at impact as an essential, mandatory part of what they do. This is not a nice to have for many organizations around the world. And they're integrating various methodologies with Lexington and Quantibly again, where they're talking to us actively. How do we make this happen? And what do we do? And even impact investors, the financial companies also talking to us, like, how do we make sustainable investment and so on and so. So that's an interesting narrative that's forming, if you will, even though sustainability and impact have become political and contentious. But in the trenches, if in a lack of a better phrase, there's a common understanding that they need this information, they need this data to be, to deliver ROI and social ROI, right? Which is a great thing. Many organizations, we see that they are moving beyond, data collection is something that we have to do and stuff, but instead they're taking like platforms like Quantibly, and they are kind of giving us ideas that once, like, hey, I want to use it in such a way so that once I start using it, everybody's kind of like looking at the technology, the features kind of fade into the background. Instead, they're looking at the sophisticated understanding, the analytics that they're observing. So, which is, to begin with, that's been our goal to begin with, right? Another exciting thing that is happening is it's also kind of cultural. There's a new generation of social sector leaders that are coming in that are data driven. They speak data. They care about the cause. They also hold big corporations responsible. So when they give money I want to say between the 18 and 25-year, 30-year-old demographic, when they give money, they have an investor mindset. They want verifiable data. And this is kind of a big shift in the demographic that we are noticing. The exciting part about the technology piece is that yes, there is AI and automation, and yes, we all know we are going through an AI bubble right now. But what kind of excites me, especially from Quantibly's context, is that we're the first platform to create an impact LLM, right? So even small organizations, tiny organizations, will soon be able to use predictive analytics to better their programs. That's exciting, right? It's still not possible in many ways. And for them to be able to kind of track the life cycle of 10,000 kids in foster care, or understand agricultural production and how that might affect poverty and hunger at a local level, that's the kind of exciting thing that we can do with technology. So I am excited by AI. I'm excited by LLM. I am excited by the fact that a new generation that is digital native, they understand and how to utilize this information. And what we are happy to be part of this journey, Quantibly and Lexington, is just trying to build this data network, this infrastructure, and we're just learning as we go.
Cyrus, that was wonderful. I'm a big supporter of social impact, and you're taking it to the next level in terms of enabling it, and being able to track it, and assign success metrics to the programs, or failure metrics, be that as it may. So I think that that plus the sheer size of what the market is worth, and the young folks coming up who want the metrics, who want to hold companies accountable, it sounds like a perfect storm for Quantibly and for Lexington. So we wish you the best and hope to speak with you again. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having us.